Welcome to another edition of Notes on one-step inequalities with multiplication and division. Okay, so it says solving one-step multiplication and division inequalities are similar to solving one-step equations. Notice the similarities. First, we isolate the variable. To undo a multiplication inequality, we must divide, because division is the opposite of multiplication. Okay, so the first step to solving this, like we did when we did equations, is circle the number and the variable together. Okay, we notice this is a multiplication equation, so the opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide both sides by 8. And now I'm going to show my work. So we're going to divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is a 1 in disguise. So y is, now notice I'm not going to put an equal sign, I'm going to put a greater than or equal sign. So y is greater than or equal to 24 divided by 8 is 3. So the answer is y is greater than or equal to 3. Now, to undo a division inequality, we must multiply, because the opposite of division is multiplication. So here we're going to circle n divided by 4, and the opposite of multiplication is, the opposite of division is multiplication, so we're going to multiply both sides by 4. So I'm going to show it here. We're going to multiply this side by 4. And I'm using the multiplicative inverse property, so this is going to turn into a 1 in disguise. And 7 times 4 is 28. Now notice I did not use an equal sign. I used an inequality sign, so n is less than 28. Okay, so it's the same process as solving a one-step equation. Now, remember the golden rule of algebra. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. Okay, now here's how solving multiplication, division, inequalities are different from solving equations. When the term containing the variable is negative, you must flip the inequality sign. And we discovered this when we did the introduction to multiplication and division inequalities. So we've got to remember to flip the inequality symbol when the term containing the variable is negative. Okay, now let's move on to page 17 and try some examples. So, this is our guided practice. Should we flip the inequality sign when solving? So, first step, circle the variable. So we're going to circle negative 3x. Okay, so since the variable is negative, we are going to flip. So the opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a 1 in disguise, so x. Now, we said we have to flip the inequality sign, so we're going to move it from greater than to less than, and 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. Now, I'm going to review how to check multiplication inequalities in just a second, but let's talk about another way to write this. X is less than negative 5. Or, if we read it from the number, it can be negative 5 is greater than x. So these two inequalities are the same thing. Now, the best one to use when graphing would be the x less than negative 5, because then we can shade the way the inequality symbol is pointing. if the variable is on the left side. But sometimes you won't see this answer if it's multiple choice. So we always write it two ways so that you will definitely see one of the two if it's multiple choice. Okay, now here's the check. And I'm just going to check number 1. Number 2 and number 3 are the same types of problems. So if you check it just like we did number 1, then you'll be good to go. So the first thing I like to do is check the number. So I plug the number back in and we ignore the symbol and see if we get 15. So is -3 times -5 positive 15? And of course the answer is yes. So we know the -5 is correct. Now to see if our symbol is pointing in the correct direction, we pick a number less than -5. So I'm just going to pick -6. So -3 times -6 is positive 18. Is 18 greater than 15? Hopefully you said yes, and that means our symbol is going the correct way. So our answer is x is less than -5 or -5 is greater than x. Now, to do 2 and 3, you check the exact same way. So I'm not going to check 2 and 3, but I will check when we get down to some fractions down below. Okay, so first step is circle the variable, and this time it's positive, so we are not going to flip. Okay, so the opposite of multiplication is division. We're going to divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is a 1 in disguise. We're not flipping, so it's less than. And -32 divided by 4 is -8. Or we could say -8 is greater than x. I'm going to box it in. And both of those are correct ways to write the inequality for this problem. Okay? Now, don't forget to do both checks when you're doing these on your own, just like we did for number 1. Okay, number 3, circle the variable. Okay, so since the variable is now negative, it's -3x, we are going to flip this time. So the opposite of multiplication is division, so we're going to divide both sides by -3. -3 divided by -3 is a 1 in disguise, so x, flip the symbol, is less than 21 divided by -3, which is -7. So we're going to, I'm not going to box it in yet, I got to write the other one. So read it from the number, -7 is greater than x. Now I'm going to box in both answers. And again, don't forget to do both checks, not only for the number, but to see if the symbol is going the correct way. Okay, now I will solve this one and show the check. So we're going to circle n divided by 3. So is this a flip or no? If you said no, you are correct. The variable is not negative. What's the opposite of dividing by 3? Correct, multiply by 3. Okay, since we use the inverse property, this is going to turn into a 1 in disguise. N is less than or equal to, we did not flip it. And -6 times 3 is -18. Or -18 is greater than or equal to n. And box in your answers. Now, since this is a division one, I am going to go ahead and show you how to check this. So you can just type in -18 divided by 3 into your calculator, or you can do it in your head. -18 divided by 3 is in fact -6. So remember, we're ignoring the symbol and just seeing if both sides equal -6, and they do. So I know my number is correct. Now, pick a number less than -18. I don't want to pick -18 because that won't tell me anything. So pick something less than -18, which is, I could pick -19, but when I divide it by 3, I'm going to get a decimal. So let's pick a multiple of 3. So I'm going to pick -21 to check. So -21 divided by 3 is -7. And -7 is less than or equal to -6. So I know my symbol is going the correct way. Okay. Now let's move on to number 5. Okay. Now, we looked at an example like this when we did equations. Whenever we see a negative in front of the fraction like this, we can just slide it with the number. Okay, now I'm going to circle the variable. And since the variable is negative now, because there's a negative in front, I am going to flip this. The opposite of division is multiplication, so we're going to multiply both sides by -4. Okay, since I use the inverse property, that's going to turn into a 1 in disguise. And we said we need to flip it because the variable is negative. And 9 times -4 is -36. Or -36 is less than or equal to x. Okay, once again, we already reviewed how to check a division inequality, but make sure you're doing both checks when you do these on your own. Okay, so first step is circle the variable, and of course this time it's negative, so we are going to flip. The opposite of multiplication is division, so I'm going to divide both sides by -12. -12 divided by -12 is a 1 in disguise. We are going to flip the symbol from greater than to less than, and -96 divided by -12 is +8, or 8 is greater than x. So I'm going to box it in. And of course, we already know how to check multiplication from the above example that I showed you. So be sure to do both checks, not only the number, but to see if the symbol is going the correct way. Okay, now at this juncture, you can pause the video and see if you can do 4 examples on your own. After you do the 4 examples on your own, you can unpause the video and check to see if you did 1, 2, 3, and 4 correctly. When I do 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm not going to talk through the examples because you should pause the video and do them on your own, and then they'll just kind of go through it. Okay. So pause the video and see if you can do 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your own. Go ahead. Okay, welcome back. And I'm going to show you 1, 2, 3, and 4. I said I wasn't going to say something, but I'll say something anyways. Okay, so circle, it's positive, so no flip. We're going to divide both sides by 5, and notice I'm going through this very quickly because you should have already done these on your own. 5 divided by 5 is a 1 in disguise, so x is less than or equal to 7, or 7 is greater than or equal to x. Okay, number 2, circle. This time it is negative, so I am going to flip. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by -4. -4 divided by -4 is a 1 in disguise. We said we needed to flip it because the variable was negative. And 36 divided by -4 is -9. So x is greater than -9, or -9 is less than x. So I'm going to box in both answers. Okay, moving straight along here. 1/3 x is greater than or equal to 14, so circle the variable. It's positive, so no flip. Okay, to get rid of a fraction, we use the multiplicative inverse. So the multiplicative inverse of 1/3 is 3. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3. 3 times 1/3 is a 1 in disguise. X is greater than or equal to 42, or 42 is less than or equal to x. Okay, and the last one. There's a negative in front, so scribble out, move it to the bottom, and circle this. Now, because the variable is attached to a negative, we are going to flip it. So the opposite of division is multiplication. We're going to multiply both sides by -2. Since we are doing the inverse property, this is going to turn into a 1 in disguise. And we're going to flip the symbol. And 16 times -2 is -32, or -32 is less than x. Okay, that concludes our notes on multiplication and division of inequalities. I hope you learned something, and can now apply this on your classwork or homework. Have a great day.